Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and I'm here with our panel of experts from Nebraska Extension and University Landscape Services, all ready to answer those gardening questions. Our phone lines are open, so you can call us at 1-800-676-5446. Our volunteers will be happy to help you. If that question can wait a while, or you'd like to send us pictures, you can email them to byf@unl.edu. Don't forget to tell us where you live. Do keep in mind also that the Backyard Farmer YouTube channel has thousands of videos and past programs for you to enjoy. While you're online, stop by the Backyard Farmer fan page on Facebook. And we're going to start right off, Jody, with questions for you. The first one comes to us from Sioux City. His question is, can borer damage be treated in a blue spruce? The tree is 25 years old. It's part of a windbreak. The damage is about 8 branches, 6 feet from the top, and the tree is about 25 feet tall. So what did we discover on this one?
I discovered that I don't know the answer to this question because I don't know what type of borer it is. I don't know what the tree in the windbreak looks like, the full tree, and I don't know if there was a pitch mass or if there was packed frass in those galleries, but it does look like there's quite a bit of damage that tree may not be able to be treated. But I would like to see what the whole windbreak looks like because you want to make sure those trees are not stressed because that would increase the chances of having a borer of some kind. But we also can't see if there was maybe a canker lower down that those branches suffered, and then we've got a lot of native borers that will attack those stressed or dying trees. So yeah, not the best for that tree, but try to save the other trees that are there.
So have him send us a picture of the whole windbreak?
Yeah, and that environment of where that tree is.
All right, and we'll probably get back to him.
Yeah.
And still may not know the answer. All right, you have one picture on this next one. This is a viewer who has pics of insects in her yards, and she says, is this one good or bad? And she says, he is a stinger, and she says, this is the voice of experience.
So this is a crane fly, and crane flies don't have stingers, and they don't also feed on blood. So a lot of times crane flies get confused for giant mosquitoes, and sometimes they're actually called mosquito hawks, but they don't hunt or kill mosquitoes either. They're pretty harmless as adults like that. As larvae, they may be turf pests, but not a pest. So I would say it's good or neutral.
Good or neutral, and not very many of them. Just are they? I mean, they're not like mayflies where there's
no.
Probably
just attracted to the light. They feed on nectar.
Okay, awesome. All right, Rock, you have several that are grass, but you've got one that's not. And this very first one, there are 2 pictures. The issue here is he has raised garden beds, and then he's got all of the weeds around about 20 by 20 surrounding these 3 boxes. He wants to get rid of the weeds, and he does say that they're up along the edges of the garden boxes. He doesn't want to hurt the vegetables or the herbs.
So certainly that's good that he's, kind of give us an explanation of why, but, that seems to me that that's something that could be hand weeded once and then mulched and right up against the edge of the bed, and then you're walking along that bed anyway, so you certainly don't want it to be muddy, but I would just clean up that edge. I mean, if they really wanted to use something non-selective with a low soil residual like glyphosate, that certainly would accelerate the process, but I think this is easily controlled with some good organic mulch.
Okay, and that is Creeping Charlie.
Yeah, that's Creeping Charlie. It's a perennial, but still, you could knock it back with Roundup if you need be, and you can aggressively hand weed it as well.
Okay, all right. You have 2 pictures on the next one. This is, we had this question, I think, last week without pictures, and this is another one. This is Siberian squill. A handful of it appeared in a front flower bed, and now they're taking over the bed, going into the yard. She's finding them in the vegetable garden, way in the backyard. She can dig up the little bulbs, but it's nearly impossible to dig them all up.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting plant in that people love to plant it because it is pretty much a deer and any animal deterrent because it's got a little mechanism in it that's got some aromatics that keeps animals away, primarily because it is fairly toxic to mammals, but that said, nothing will eat it. So it's kind of a unique thing of this plant that I kind of get a huge kick out of it. It's a prolific seeder and it's a prolific bulb producer. You can smother them with a heavy, once again, we'll go back to the mulch. You can smother them with about an extra couple, 2-3 inches of mulch on top, in and around and follow good mulching practices. In turf, it's actually relatively easy to control with anything containing 2,4-D or avoid dicamba, but anything with 2,4-D or triclopure or something like that will pretty much knock it back. But they do have to be aggressive when it looks like that was a pretty good stand. But I think this plant is really unique, and some people don't plant it because of its aggressive nature. I'd avoid it along woodlands if somebody really likes it, but it can make a hillside look amazing.
Right. And I know in some states it's considered invasive. Not here, it's just
17
aggressive.
states, it's invasive, but not us.
Not us yet. All right. Thank you very much. Lauren, your first question, you have 2 pictures. This is an Omaha viewer. She calls this a tumor-like growth on her urban apples, which are the real narrow apple trees. She says they don't look like they're from pruning wounds, and they're sort of soft.
Yeah, so I really don't think this is any type of a gall or a disease on this, Kim. It really looks like it's related to where some pruning was done in the past. So I'm not concerned about a disease issue with this one, and really think it's something that is probably going to just continue and not hurt the tree.
Okay.
So, from what I can tell.
And if they open and ooze,
well, if they open and ooze or something, then we can be concerned about that.
Yeah.
But the way they look, they really do look like they're all associated, from what I could tell, with a branch. And I just don't see them as a canker. Now, if something changes, if they turn dark, if they ooze or something like that, then we've got a situation where they're located, it's really going to take the tree out. So I would really just kind of observe this over the summer and see how it goes.
All right, thanks, Lauren. You have one picture on this next one. This is a 3-year-old sumac and a dog with zoomies in the background, which is fun, and something strange going on with the trunk on this one.
Yeah, and so actually I have some sumacs in my landscape as well, and a lot of times when you prune them, I think we need to go back a picture here. Yeah, that's the next one. But a lot of times with sumacs, when you prune them where that branch was at, you'll see that dead area and it will kind of get trapped in there in the bark. So I think it's just normal. I have no concern about a disease with that either.
All right, and one more, and this is the dwarf apple tree, northwest Iowa, Westfield. That's your last picture. The limbs are turning black with no leaves, or once they start, the black leaves die. Can it be saved? Two of his trees have it, and the dwarf apple in the middle doesn't. They're all different varieties.
Well, and because they're different varieties, and the symptom, if you look at this, you've got that black discoloration. Now, one thing that can cause this is fire blight. So if as things emerge, if you're seeing black leaves, if you're seeing any other symptoms on small stems as they emerge, and a classic symptom of fire blight is a shepherd's crook type scenario where that stem just wilts and forms a crook and turns black. If you're seeing those symptoms along with this, it's most likely fire blight. Now, either way, if it is a fungal canker, which there are some fungal diseases of apple that can form a canker that would turn black as well, you're going to prune that out. So, realistically, going into that area and pruning it back 7 to 10 if it's bacterial, 3 to 4 if it's fungal.
And how would they know the difference between bacterial and fungal?
I'm sorry, if it's fire blight, it's bacterial, so you go 7 to 10 inches. If you're seeing those other symptoms, if it's fungal, you can go 3 to 4 inches back.
All right.
I would start conservatively if you don't see the other symptoms and go 3 to 4 inches back.
All right, thank you, Lauren. All right, Jeff, you have 2 pictures on the first one. This is Colorado Springs. So found us all the way from Colorado. He has a question about this particular tree. It looks like a Doug fir.
Right.
Bent over from heavy snow. He's wondering if it can be staked, straighten it back up, and should he save this tree or start over?
Well, I think my initial response would be to start over. However, if I think we've probably all tried to save some trees in the past, so I wouldn't be opposed to trying to straighten that up and save it. I'd look at removing some of the turf around the trees That might help as well. So you might want to try that. But there's a lot of damage to the lower part of the trunk and near the base there. So that would be my concern with that it's, but you can go for it.
Right. And if he were to straighten it up, you don't tie it down so hard that it can't run away, right?
Right, yeah, you're right. You're going to want to have literally some wiggle room in it so it can move a little bit. Right.
Okay. 2 pictures on the next one. This is rural Thayer County. This is an ash, probably over 20 years old. The base is damaged, shows some peeling, seems to be getting worse. She's wondering, is it wise to remove this tree, and especially since it is close to the house?
Yeah. We actually had a similar sort of thing occur with some of our green ash on campus, on East Campus in particular. And we watched them. They weren't in an area where there was any particular target, so we were able to watch them for a little while. But it did continue, and so that base is, that trunk there is decaying. So I think I would go ahead and have that removed sooner than later.
Right, before the wind does it and
Right.
takes the house with.
Right.
Right, absolutely. All right, 2 more for you, Jeff. This is a DeWitt, Nebraska viewer. 15 to 20-year-old ginkgo, and the leader snapped off in a windstorm. Should they prune anything out or let it be at this point, or what do you think?
It looks like the tree is healed from that initial damage. If they wanted to do any kind of pruning, they could, if there's some crossing branches, that sort of thing, from having the main leader removed. But I'm guessing it's some upright variety of Princeton Century or something like that. So.
All right, good. Well, we promised you that Jody would be showing you some worms tonight, but we had some pretty devastating weather come through our area last week. We feel really bad for people, but several eastern Nebraska towns were affected, so we thought we'd have Jeff talk about what you can do to help any trees on your property and do that in a safe way.
Last spring, we talked about pruning our storm damaged trees. Well, here we are, another round of storms have gone through the state, and so we thought it would be important to review that one more time. If you have larger trees in your property, it's important to get out soon after the storm to evaluate to make sure we don't have any safety concerns in your lawn. You may need to use binoculars or certainly your cell phone to get a better view of any potential cracked or broken branches that are high up in a tree. If you do have something that's very high up and that can't really be handled from you standing on the ground, it's important to call a certified arborist to have them come in and evaluate that tree, and then they'll be able to guide you through the process of either removal or pruning. If you have smaller trees or shrubs, then you certainly can go out and do some of that pruning now. I suggest that at this point, we don't go through and do extensive pruning. We just remove the damaged branches or clean up any torn bark that may be on the trunk of the tree. Take care of some of that now, and then as we go through the year and into the fall, you can then reevaluate that tree and see if more pruning is required. If the tree has a damaged or broken leader, and again, if it's a fairly small tree, you may consider just going ahead and replacing that tree. Usually having a broken leader in a small tree will signal that the tree will have difficulty as it goes into the future. So probably a good time just to restart the whole process. If it's a larger tree with a broken leader, again, we worry about some of that new wood, some of that new branching that will occur down the road that's weaker, has weaker attachments, and then they also become problems going into the future. So that's a discussion you would have with your certified arborist, is maybe we need to remove the tree because of that broken leader. So it's important that, again, if you have high branches, heavy wood that you have to remove, that you call a certified arborist and have them evaluate that tree for you. If it's smaller stuff, then you could look at taking some of those branches off the trunk of the tree, cleaning that up right now, and again, continuously evaluate your trees as we go through this stormy spring of ours.
And unfortunately, we did a similar video last year during this time. There are also many other videos like this on our Backyard Farmer YouTube channel. There's detailed information on safe removal or pruning of your trees that have been damaged by these kinds of storms. Hopefully that's the last one for a long time in our state. All right, Jody, 2 two pictures on this one. This is a Adams viewer, bugs on Baptisia. They're wondering if they're aphids. She sprayed with water. She treated with neem oil, dusted with 7. Nothing seemed to faze them.
Okay, so these are called wild indigo weevils, or seed pod weevils, because the female lays her eggs in the seed pods, and so the larvae develop in there, and that's how they overwinter. And they emerge as adults this time of year, and they start eating the foliage and the flowers. So what you can do, you might be able to try spinosad, or you can think about planting something else, because it looks like that's pretty damaged, and it looks like a very kind of small plant. And then maybe make sure that maybe if you don't want those pods on there for next year, so that nothing is overwintering in there.
Yeah, I think we've had them on campus once or twice, but we still have the Baptisia, so it's a great
I've not seen
plant.
them before.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, Jody, since you are Miss Tick,
Yes.
ticks are out and about. This person in Gretna is wondering the species, gender, and breeding capabilities from these particular photos, and apparently a tree stand frequented by deer and coyotes, and this is came home with a couple dozen new friends.
Yeah, ticks are out. They've been out for about 8 or 9 weeks now. These are American dog ticks. So these are one of our most common. The one that looks like it's wearing a bib, the bigger one, that's a female adult. And the other one that's got wavy patterns, that is the male adult. And I've got some samples here that have been in my office since one of them, there's actually 2 came in today, and then there's a couple that have been in my office since the 21st. So they just live in, I'm not feeding them, but you can see that they have a tendency to crawl up, and that's how they get to your scalp, which is where most people find them. So I just want to remind everyone to have your pets treated, to check yourself, your pets, and your children after outdoor activity, which includes field trips and recess, and to remove it safely with some pointy tweezers and keep it for identification purposes so you know more about them. These ticks will pretty much be around for all of summer, and when they're not around, we'll have other ticks. So all year round, let's make sure we are checking ourselves and our loved ones.
Which ones are most concerned for transmission of like Lyme disease and things?
So for Lyme disease, it's going to be the black-legged tick. These ones can transmit Rocky Mountain spotted fever and also tularemia. So just because it's not, the one that can transmit Lyme disease doesn't mean it's not important. All the ticks that we have here in Nebraska have the ability to transmit something nasty to humans.
Ugh. All right.
That really ticks me off.
You have one more picture, Jody. And this one is a Lincoln viewer. And they're saying this spider-like thing was crawling under the flagstone patio. What is it?
Yeah, so this is a spider. It's one of our ground spiders. We call this the woodlouse hunter. My nickname for this is like the State Farm spider, because it has a khaki abdomen and a red cephalothorax. But they live and feed under stones and rocks, and they're called woodlouse hunters because they feed on sow bugs and pill bugs, which we call roly-polies.
All right, fun. Okay, Rock, 2 pictures on this one. This is, they're in Hooper, and a new shop. The contractor hauled in fill, and it's mostly clay. They're wondering if they should bring in some topsoil before they seed.
I don't know if I'd bother with the topsoil, only because it's a lot of work to get it in. I think just a little bit of organic matter of some kind, compost or something else, and lightly incorporate into the surface. Since they're going to be seeding soon, and it's spring, and we struggle with spring seedings, I would consider a starter fertilizer. You must use a starter fertilizer, but I'd consider a starter fertilizer that has mesotrione in it. There's a number of products that have mesotrione on as a seed starter, along with the fertilizer, a little bit of organic matter, and looks like that seed bed is very well prepared. So kudos to the contractor for getting the ground ready. Just probably needs a little bit of nutritional boost with the compost and the starter fertilizer.
All right, you have one picture on this next one. This is a Lincoln viewer, and this grass is moving rapidly into their yard. He wonders what it is and how do you control it. He thought it was early rye or a grain rye.
Yeah, this is not a rye. This is smooth brome. you see it green up a lot sooner than any of the common turfgrass species, as well as other cool season grasses. So we call it a cool season. Not that it's neat, but that it's going to green out a little bit quicker. Has a real aggressive rhizome system. Tends to fade out when we get into some summer months, but it'll be back with a vengeance in the spring and in the fall. And there's absolutely nothing you can selectively do to control them. So it's spot treat with glyphosate and reseed, but realize you've got to get the entire plant beforehand. Most people that get it just keep it mowed shorter and hopefully suppress it enough that it doesn't take over the yard.
All right. Let's see. Lauren, you have 3 pictures, I think, for your... Oh, one more for rock.
one more.
Yeah, so this is also an ID, rock. What?
And it's also smooth brome.
Okay.
And kudos to the viewers, because they did a nice job spreading it all out, and then I could blow it up and take a look at the ligule and the auricle and all the things that we look at as grass ID people. So good for them for getting a good picture to us for both. But both of these are smooth brome, so I don't have to repeat what I just said.
And really hard to control.
And difficult to control, if not impossible.
In other words, move, right?
They can move, or they can move. I suggest they move, but
Maybe goats?
goats won't selectively feed on brome over the other turf grasses, so
They do need to move.
Oh, brother.
that's horrible advice from all of us. Just ignore what we're saying, because we don't really have a solution for you.
All right. Lauren, you have 3 pictures on this one now. This is a barberry in Omaha. East side began dying late last summer. They're wondering, can you tell on this one? Because I know we've had this in past seasons as well.
And a lot of times with our shrubs, when we have a portion of that shrub dying, not really much that we can tell from a photo. So I would encourage the viewer to follow the injury down into the crown of the shrub. There's probably going to be a certain branch or branch cluster that is being affected. It's most likely some sort of physical injury. Sometimes we even see, something girdling the stem. But the other thing, it could be some sort of a fungal canker in a shrub like that, particularly late summer when we get stress. So I would just follow that down. If it's not greening up, you can wait some time if it's the first time that this is occurring and let it green up. If it doesn't, I would prune that out and start working on reshaping it.
All right. Let's see, your next one, this is from Cass County. You have 2 pictures on this one. 40-year-old trees damaged from 2 years ago. The cost, they have 5 trees, and it was a lot to treat them. They're wondering about this damage, and they think this is like one of the spruce. Yeah, needle cast, right.
So in this particular case, it is really unusual that one tree would be affected by needle cast this severely. That's not a disease if these are all the same spruce. We'd expect to see some general injury across an area, usually a north-facing area, an area that gets hit by irrigation or something like this. It's keeping it wet. The way that whole tree is thinned out in the middle, it makes me think there's something else going on. There may be needle cast there, but I tend to think there's something else that's affecting the tree more severely than that. So this would be another case where Jody indicated a picture of the windbreaker group of trees that you have. If it's just one individual tree and all the others around it are fine, I really wouldn't recommend treatment in this case. I think this is one that may be on its way out.
Right, that's an awful lot of damage on
Yeah, that's for a needle cast. That's very unusual for a single tree in a landscape compared to all the others.
All right, okay. I think Jeff, you are up next.
Yeah.
This is interesting. This is a volunteer in the hosta beds in the Benson, Omaha area under an ash. He wants to eradicate them without taking the hosta out. Do we have any idea what this is?
To me, well, initially I thought it was like salvia or something that had seeded itself in, and that's what to me it looks like something he may have in the garden that just, we had a good year and it was able to produce a lot of seed, and the seed made it through. I'll kind of echo what Rock was saying. I think my initial solution would be doing something mechanical, getting your hoe and going in there and just taking the plants out that way. You can, again, put a couple inches of mulch and take care of it like that. As a last solution, you could look at using some sort of non-selective herbicide to take it out.
All right, or glove of death.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Your next one, we had a question about getting rid of lily of the valley last week without pictures, and not a great solution. So she wants to get rid of lily of the valley. And then we have somebody else who wants to know whether they can move and relocate it right now.
Sure.
So how do we get rid of it?
So one wants to keep. We need to get these two people together.
I know.
So, as far as getting rid of it, it's a persistent plant, and you can dig it up. You may have to do it a couple of times. So that will work. Again, non-selective herbicide will handle that. So, and I think you just need to be persistent. And something like that, I would consider cutting it back and letting the new plant, as it emerges, as the new stuff comes up, then go ahead and treating that. As far as moving it, I think, again, it's a tough plant. Get your spade out there and get a nice big chunk of soil out of the ground and move it, and you'll probably be just fine. So
Whenever you want to move it.
yes, anytime. Yeah.
You probably almost throw it across the yard and it'll still live, right?
That's probably right.
Just to add a little something to that, and I know it was in a bed with other broadleafs, but if you're real careful with it, but if you add triclopyr to glyphosate, it does a pretty good job on it.
If you want to get rid of it. All right. Well, we've got a break coming up, but let's take a minute to hear this week's weather forecast from Gannon Rush at UNL's High Plains Regional Climate Center.
Thanks, Kim. Temperatures will be fairly mild this weekend, with highs in the upper 60s into the low 70s. On Sunday, parts of the Panhandle could reach the upper 70s. The central and eastern portions of the state will warm up on Monday and will likely remain that way into the week. After the crazy storms this past week, things should be calmer. There is a heavy band of precipitation expected in the southeastern part of the state. This will occur in 2 rounds of storms, one on Friday and the other on Monday. Over 2 inches of precipitation is expected with any thunderstorms that do occur. Soil temperatures are in the 50s and into the 60s in some locations. They will likely not fluctuate much out west due to the cooler temperatures, but the eastern part of the state could see a moderate increase. And that's your weekly weather forecast. Back to you, Kim.
Of course, right now it is time for the lightning round. All right, Jeff, here's your first one. This is an Elkhorn viewer, and they're wondering about the hail-damaged foliage of alliums and hostas. Do they pull that foliage off? Do they leave that foliage on?
I think if it's badly damaged, I'd prune it back.
All right.
Yeah, so you have a nice clean cut. You don't have a rough surface.
All right. We have a Bradshaw viewer who has healthy peonies that are budding out. Kind of needs to transplant them. Will it hurt to transplant now, or?
I would say I wouldn't transplant them now. I think I'd wait till later in the year. If you absolutely have to, then do the best you can, keep things moist, put them in good soil. But I would prefer to wait till later in the year, till August.
All right. We have an Omaha viewer who wonders whether a chicken manure mixed with pine shavings as a mulch would hurt the roses.
I wouldn't use fresh manure on roses or the pine shavings. I think some sort of composted material would work fine, but I would avoid any kind of manure with roses.
All right. We have a viewer who dug their tulip bulbs with all the foliage still attached. Should they replant immediately, cut off the foliage, or hold them?
They could do any of those. They could replant. It may work just fine. You could hold them and let them dry and then plant them later in the year. So. All
right. Nice job. Okay, Lauren, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. We have interiors of arborvitae are dying, but not the exteriors. Is this a possible disease, a canker? Is there a treatment?
It may just be a natural leaf drop. Follow branches down if they're affected and prune it out.
All right. This is a Holdridge viewer. There are little crab apples forming on their crabapple trees, but there's orange on the blossom end. What is that, and is there a treatment?
It could be a rust, which the way you're describing it, on the crabapple. No treatment.
All right. There was a maple diagnosed by this viewer with bacterial scorch last year. Is there a treatment for that?
I would not treat bacterial scorch.
All right. We have a viewer in Lincoln who said they had a small patch of white in their lawn recently. Would you treat that?
Powdery mildew, be better to try to go after, if they can, open the canopy, try to get more light penetration into that area, it's going to be a chronic problem in shaded turf areas.
All right. Shrooms are forming in a tree wound. Is that always a sign of decay and death?
Yes.
Okay. Nice job.
Varying degrees, though, to follow up on that. The tree could still have some life, but usually when something fruits, there's quite a bit of injury and buildup inside.
All right. Not varying degrees of death.
Yeah.
There's just
You're dead or you're not.
Did I say varying degrees of death? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. All right. Rock, are you ready?
Sure, I've got varying degrees of death going on over here.
Tissue inside the tree. How about that? Varying degrees of dead tissue.
All right. We have a viewer who wonders if there is a good pre-emergent that can be applied dry.
There's plenty of granular pre-emergence that'll work fine.
Okay. We have a rural Creighton viewer who wonders, is it too late to start a fescue lawn?
No, you've still got plenty of time.
All right. The same viewer said they planted annual rye in this lawn last fall. Should they till it before they plant the fescue?
Yeah, they probably ought to need to knock it back because it'll still, if it overwinters, it's going to grow all winter long or all summer long now and impede the growth of the tall fescue you're trying to plant.
All right. Will a natural plus organic 20% vinegar weed and grass killer work under aronia without affecting the berries? This is a Norfolk viewer.
Any green tissue it hits, it's going to scorch, but it's not systemic, so it won't move through the plant. So if you're careful, it probably should be fine, but it's not going to kill anything. It's just going to burn leaves.
All right. Is barricade the correct pre for purslane and prostrate knotweed?
It'll work on both, but prostrate knotweed, you're too late.
Okay. Nice job. Jody, ready? Mm-hmm. All right. This is a Lincoln viewer who found today what she thought was a June bug, one of the brown ones. Would that be possible? Are they that early?
You know, anything's possible with this weather. I wouldn't be surprised. It could be one of the May beetles. We call them May beetles because they've been showing up early.
All right. We have a Carney viewer. Elizabeth diagnosed thrips on his 100+ years old privet hedge. He's wondering about the timing for treatment.
Okay, thrips. Yeah, it's pretty tough because they're out now. So.
Too late?
Maybe.
That was
I don't know. I mean, do you want to? Isn't that a big shrub?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might not be like economically effective.
Okay. We have a Stapleton viewer who wonders if there's anything that will reduce the numbers of rose chafers, like beneficial nematodes or anything like that.
You might be able to if you put it around is it for the roses?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the same thing for like Japanese beetles if they wanted to do a systemic or if they wanted to do the nematodes around there when they're like larvae or grubs in the soil.
All right. Well, you know, we are a few weeks away from getting all planted up at our garden. So for now, we've still got some things in the greenhouse and in the raised beds. Here's Terry out at the Backyard Farmer Garden to tell us more.
In the Backyard Farmer Garden, we are in a holding pattern, but I'm not going to complain. We've had about 1.5 inches of rain here in Lincoln, well needed, and we are just going to kind of wait for that rain to kind of subside. Looks like we'll have a couple more days and then maybe a few nice days next week, so we'll be able to get into the garden and get it going. We have some radishes coming up in our raised beds, those early spring seeds that we started. We are organizing all of our direct seed plants, so our cucumbers, our green beans, all of those are getting ready to come out as soon as our beds are ready and we can start working this soil. We've had a little bit of insect problem with some of our plants inside the greenhouse, so we've had to use some neem oil and stuff on them, but they are looking pretty good. We're ready to kind of cut things back, do a little bit of trimming so they're not too leggy when they come out, and we start hardening them off here in about 1.5 weeks. So stop by the Backyard Farmer Garden and check it out.
You know, we just need a couple more weeks of that consistent weather, good luck, to get everything hardened off and into the ground. Can't wait for another great season in the garden. So now let's turn our attention to the end of the table, Jeff, and here are the plants of the week.
Yeah, we have a couple unusual plants of the week. This first one I'll point out with the long flower stems here. So this is silver fountain alternate leaf butterfly bush. So, which is unusual. It's pretty fragrant. I think Lauren has been commenting. That wasn't me, that was the plant. So I know you were wondering what smelled so good over here. But, so this gets quite large, 5 to 8 feet tall, doesn't die back, unlike most butterfly bushes. So it's something that you can prune into a larger plant over time. But it's pretty cool. Has nice foliage, nice silverish green foliage, so very unusual. And then the foliage plant we have here is a Japanese painted arum, so it's related to our jack-in-the-pulpits. It's a shade plant. Has big leaves that emerge in the fall, and they'll last through the winter and then go dormant. So does this produce fruit like flower stalk?
It's a very weird, strange one. It lasts about 3 days, and then the berries look an awful lot like jack-in-the-pulpit. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, very cool plants.
Yeah, very nice plant.
All right,
Good
thank
choices.
you, Jeff. And by the way, the biggest of those painted arum leaves this year is almost 30 inches tall and about 12 to 15 inches long.
Wow.
They're humongous. Yeah, awesome. All right, Jody, 2 pictures on this first one. This is an aurora viewer. The columbine is covered with these insects. Are they aphids? How do they get rid of them before they do more damage? And a spray of water has not worked.
Well, that's usually what I say for aphids, and these are aphids. So they can reproduce without mating. So you've got to spray like a strong stream of water, and you have to do that regularly every couple days to make sure that they're knocked back. If you want to, cut it down and wait for next year, you just want to start scouting very early.
All right, 2 pictures on this next one. This is a Lincoln viewer. She says, quick little guys, about 1 to 2 inches, colorful when open, and they saw several of these enjoying the catmint.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these. These are clouded sulfurs, so it's a type of sulfur butterfly, all those yellow ones. I don't know, they're pretty cute. Their host plants are like alfalfa, and a lot of vetches, different plants around.
Cool, and then you have one here again, and the question is, what is this one?
This is a common checkered skipper. So skippers are kind of like in between the moth and the butterfly, but skippers they always have those like kind of curved antennae with a little knob at the end and big eyes, and then they fly erratically.
Okay, so good guys.
Yeah.
Fun
They're-
guys.
Yeah, they're
Fun
good.
guys. All right, thanks, Jody. Rock, you have 1, 2, 3 pictures on this next one. This is a Battle Creek viewer. He's got this particular grass. He's stuck a screwdriver in the ground so we can see it, and he sent us a whole bunch of pictures, 3 of them, I think, or 2 or 3 anyway. What is this grass?
So this is smooth brome again. So we're on our 3rd client sending in smooth brome, or 3rd viewer sending in smooth brome, and we can repeat what we said prior to the break. It's just next to impossible to control, no selective management, so it's non-selective spot sprays and keep it off of the desirable plants.
All right, and then 2 pics on the next one. This is also a Lincoln viewer. What is this particular grass on this next one?
Well, thank gosh it's not smooth brome. This is orchard grass, and we typically see it when somebody uses, and I'm not saying this is what the viewer did, but we typically see it when somebody uses a less reputable seed bag. It's a common contaminant because where they grow the cheaper seeds, often orchard grass is grown there. It's also a perennial bunch grass. It's a little bit easier to control with a non-selective herbicide because it doesn't have rhizomes like the smooth brome, but still it's the same approach. So it's glyphosate and reseed. This one's a little bit easier to control though. This is orchard grass.
All right, thank you, Rock. 2 pics on this first one for you, Lauren. This is a Lincoln viewer who's fairly certain this is evidence of cedar apple rust. She's wondering, does it pose any danger to her flowering crabapple, which is only 15 feet away from the junipers, and is there any way to control it?
Yeah, so when we see branch infections like that, it could be cedar apple rust or it could be quince rust. With this, it's cedar apple because it's producing more mass around the injury site. So those are telia, just like we see when we see the globe structures on cedars. In this particular case, I would prune the those out just because they're going to kill the twigs on the juniper. As far as control, your flowering crabapples may not be susceptible, so I wouldn't go and spray because there's a lot of resistance in a lot of our flowering crabs for cedar apple rust. So I would wait and see. If you do have that as a consistent problem, it will not kill the tree if it's an established tree, but you may want to use a fungicide at the time right before what you're seeing on the juniper.
All right. You have one picture on this next one. This is a Millard, Omaha viewer. These shrooms are growing faster than she can get rid of them. She's afraid her dog will eat them because it will eat anything. And how can you get rid of them?
So in this particular case, there's really nothing you can do to get rid of them. This is, I believe, one of the Caprinus species. It's going to be really difficult. It's breaking down material down in the soil, and until that food source is gone, it's going to keep going. So it may be where a tree was removed. There may be some other buried debris there. Now, as far as toxicity for the pet, in general, that group, if that is what it is, and it could be something else, but I think that's what it is generally not toxic to the pet. There is a Caprinus species that if the pet would drink alcohol 72 hours after, within 72 hours of eating them, he could get sick. But I think as long as you can keep your dog away from that and the mushroom, probably going to be okay. But I would not encourage allowing the pet to eat them just in case that's not right.
All right.
Just hand removal.
And you have some shrooms in front of you.
I do, and actually I brought a sample because a lot of people are talking about morels right now. And so this is a morel, but the one reason I wanted to show it is to compare it with what is a false morel. So false morels, they're not near as attractive, but a novice collector may see this, and I don't know how, but you could confuse it, right, if you had never seen a morel. It does have that kind of brainy look, but it's not the sponge appearance as the morel. These can get really large. They'll range from the size of the morel up, I've seen them 5 pounds. So a large range in size, but the thing that is always clear about these is when you cut the stem, they'll be solid in the middle, and when you cut the morel, it'll be hollow in the middle. So quite easy to tell the difference. The false morels are considered poisonous, so I would not recommend eating them. I won't even tell you to eat morels, but these are definitely edible in choice, right? So if you have and you're questioning and you'd like to bring me about 20 morels to sample and make sure they're okay, I could do that. But I'm just kidding on that one. You're not going to give those up. But I hope you, if you haven't done it yet, I'd encourage you to get out. We're towards the end of morel season. And Brad and I did shoot a video this week that will air next Thursday. A little bit late, but will help you next season on morel hunting.
All right, you have 2 more pictures too, Lauren. This is a West Point viewer. Found these weird black spots on the trunk of this oak when it got cut down. What do you think that is?
This is really interesting, and I'm not really certain. Looking at it, and this can happen, if it looks like it could be a pin oak. And in that white oak group, verticillium on large trees could do this. That said, I don't know. It's a really irregular pattern. But I think it's some sort of fungal growth that's happening in the tree. If it's through all the rings when they're cutting it, it could be something that's in the vascular tissue of the tree. But otherwise, it may just be on the surface. It's hard to say, but it's cool. Very unique. Yeah, I would make some really cool tables out of that.
Right. Jeff, you have 2 pictures on this first one. This is a viewer who bought topsoil and compost, filled the garden beds, and now it's major weeds. How do they treat the weeds without killing the vegetables? They've tried preen.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's a major weed problem, quite honestly. So I don't think I would be too concerned. I think you could go in and just hoe the weeds, and you could be mulching through that area so you're not having just bare soil there. So you can mulch that. It'll help with your watering as the year goes on.
All right, 2 pics on the next one. This is a Blair viewer. Hostas had this unusual growth at the base, and none of the others in the other beds have it, just a couple. What is this, and should they rogue it out?
Well, I asked Lauren about this as well to make sure it isn't some disease or fungus or something going on, and he didn't really think it was anything either. I think we both agreed it looked like kind of the vascular tissue is what's left, and the rest of the leaf is disintegrated. It also appears that the crowns of the plants are not that haven't been backfilled. So it's like the crowns are bare and they need some soil or compost in there. So I think short term I'd prune that material out, add some topsoil, some compost in there around the crowns of the plants and see what happens.
Okay, and you have one more picture, and this is a viewer who wants to know about pruning out the dead in a boxwood. Is it time?
Yeah, it's time. I was looking at some boxwood on campus today, and before I would prune anything out, I'd see if I could just kind of knock some of those leaves off and see if that material's still alive. It may push some leaves. So I think you can prune it out. I'm sure we'll recover from it just fine, or you can wait a little bit and see if it starts to green up a little.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Well, earlier in the show, we focused on storm-damaged trees, but what those strong winds come around, everything else in your landscape is also affected. Here's Scott to talk about storm-damaged landscape plants.
Portions of Nebraska and Iowa were hit hard from some extreme weather this past week. We just heard from Jeff on what you can do with your trees and shrubs, but let's talk about the rest of the landscape. Our goal is to keep as much photosynthetic tissue in place on our plants, so we want to be light with the pruning. We can go in and remove any of those broken stems or leaves, but we want to try to keep as much of the plant intact so that way it can continue to recover. As the summer progresses, we could go in and remove some of those storm damaged leaves, but for right now, leave the plant as is if we're able to. We should take a good look at some of our iris. They are prone to different type of bacterial rots that can enter in through storm damage points. We might need to cut those halfway back to help preserve the plants, which could be painful because right now they have started to flower. As we move through the rest of the growing season, we should provide good plant health care practices. Water if we go into any type of drought. Avoid the use of any type of fertilizers because fertilizers can make storm damaged plants a little bit more stressed and can continue to provide good plant health care. Nebraska's weather is dynamic. It's always changing, but hopefully with some of these tips, we can get our plants to recover and continue to thrive.
A lot of caring for damaged plants involves being patient, and it can really be a wait-and-see situation. So do give it some time. Hopefully things will fill back in and come back. All right, we have a whole bunch of announcements. Our first one is May Museum's 25th annual sale on Saturday, May 4th in Fremont. Our second one is the UNL Hort Club sale, and it is only going to be tomorrow because they are just about out of plants, no more on Saturday. Our third one is the Men's Garden Club of Omaha, Friday 3 to 7, Saturday 8 to noon, and that's Military Avenue in Omaha. Our next one is a Tisket, a Tasket, Iris in My Basket, which is very fun, and that's also in Omaha, 12:30 to 4 on Saturday, May 11th. And our final one is the Holy Trinity Arts Festival, May 18th, 9 to 4 here in Lincoln. So way too many, lots of fun, can't be in all those places at once. All right, Jody, you have two pictures on this first one. This is a South Bend viewer. After the recent rain, these very large worms were in the driveway. What kind are they, and will they live after being on the pavement?
Well, if they're in the sun, no. But these are a type of European earthworm.
Just earthworms, so go fishing or put them back in the...
Yeah, just toss them back in the garden
Toss them
bed.
back, all right. This is a Milford viewer who says, what is this insect? It was on an outside door.
Yeah, so this is a ichneummonid wasp. It's a parasitoid wasp of caterpillars. So they go to light, they're nocturnal, not a sting hazard.
So just kind of a cool, weird thing.
Yeah, good guy.
All right, and this is a Ceresco viewer for your next one. They're saying this little spider hitched a ride on their coat in from the garden. What is this?
Super cute crab spider, looks like a crab. And it's like one of those ambush predators that sits on the flower, waits for a little fly or bee to come by.
But it's so cute.
It is really cute.
And then it ambushes.
It's the circle of life.
All right. Rock, let's see. You have two pictures on your first one here. She is in Schubert, Nebraska. And she's wondering what these weeds are and how is it possible to control them.
This is hoary cress. It's a winter annual or an early summer annual, a prolific seed producer under control. I just don't let them go to head and mostly hand pull and get as much as you can out of there because there's really no selective measure.
All right. In other words, they've already flowered. Don't let them go to seed.
Don't let them go to seed.
Pull them up now. All right. And then you have 2 pictures on this next one. This viewer is saying, what is this plant? It went from 0 to this, and now it's in flower in a lawn. How do you control this?
This is black medic. It's a legume, so it fixes its own nitrogen. Generally, we see it in low fertility sites, either garden beds or lawns, usually a little bit of fertilizer. It works really well, and if they really need to, they can use a pre-emergent, but normally just throw some fertilizer down on the lawn or in the garden bed, and it'll take care of itself.
All right, excellent. Lauren, you have one picture on this. This is almost a stumper. This is an Osmond, Nebraska viewer. What's going on with the tomatoes? The leaves curl up and fall off. New leaves form and fall off. I asked for more information. She said they're not wet. She also said her brother is having the same problem with his plants in a different spot. They are a variety called 4th of July, and the better boys, best boys, and everybody else is not affected.
Yeah, and I honestly cannot tell from the photo what's happening. The things that I would talk about are trying to make sure you have clean media, your pots are clean, all those things. If you've done all that, you're on the right track. I would sure separate those plants from the others just in case it is something that's in the container that's going to spread.
All right, excellent. You have 2 pictures on the next one. This is a prairie gold aspen. Small black spots forming throughout the tree. Some years they've turned black, but not until late summer. So is this yet again one of those Mother Nature saying?
I think the black spots are something with Mother Nature or some sort of injury that's not disease related. The late season black leaves can be related to poor moisture availability. So the grass looks great now. If it's in an irrigated lawn, that's fine. But if it's dry, come late season, you may want to look at making sure you have some moisture for it because that can make them cause black leaves.
And I know I think we have some of those even on occasion on our one on campus, but we get that all the time with aspen late in the summer. All right, Jeff, you have 2 pictures on this first one. This is a northeast corner of the house, variegated dogwood in Norfolk. Has a few leaves on one tip. Should they cut it back? What in the world is going on with this? And it was full of healthy leaves last year.
Yeah, I think this is, well, you could cut it back. I think I would consider restarting. If you like the plant, see if you can find the same sort of thing, maybe put it in a different location.
Right, because it looks like it's way more going on than just the tips.
Yeah, dogwoods want good light, so.
Right. One picture for the final one of the night. This is an Omaha viewer. They have a flamethrower redbud last fall. It's protected, sustained some winter kill, and they're wondering, can they turn one of those side branches into a leader if they want more height?
They could. Redbuds is a plant that is found in a lot of locations in the U.S. This particular one came from North Carolina where this was developed. So I think hardiness is going to be an issue with this particular one. You'll see a lot of the color ones coming out of Oklahoma and Texas. So they're not going to be reliably hardy for us.
Right. So she might retrain that leader this year and
it
get
might
to
do the same
retrain
thing
that leader next year.
Yeah.
I know you also have, I don't remember the name of the variety. It's on the north side of our union. It's one of the purple
Forest pansy, is that?
One of those.
Yeah. Right.
And same thing. It's,
right.
a little bit of the tip dieback on it. So North Carolina is not here.
That's right.
Unfortunately.